Lake is a fascinating game that I thoroughly enjoyed playing, and it's a mixture between a postal delivery service game with adventure elements in and a choose your own adventure kind of running alongside it as well. It takes place in 1986, and you play as Meredith Weiss, who has taken a break from her big city career job, where she works in computer technology and personal computers. And the great thing about this is that it's a bit nostalgic as you go back in time to cassettes, local radio, landline phones, no mobiles, and it strips out a lot of shortcutting for the game and allows the story and the characters and the location to take centre stage. In Lake, you'll be taking over the postal job that your dad normally does whilst your mum and dad are on holiday in Florida, thinking about where they should go for their retirement, basically. And so you're stepping in to kind of chill out and relax and do a bit of monotonous postal working. How you then interact with all of the people that you deliver letters and parcels to essentially decides where your story goes. There's no real right or wrong, it's just you choosing your own path. So you can choose to be quite nice to people and strike up friendships, reconnect with old friends, and feel like you're being accepted back into a community again if you want to. But if you feel like you've outgrown Providence Oaks, which is the place that you'll be staying in, and actually you want to be that big city go-getter, then you can choose to answer like that too, and your relationships will change slightly depending on what you've got. But ultimately you're all heading to the same goal, because after 2 weeks you'll be making the decision, do I stay or do I go? And who do you want to stay or go with as well? One of the great things about Lake is that it's very open to letting you choose choices and then have like a second thought or retraction later on down the line. There's 2 love interests that you can pursue. One's female, one's male. You can pursue both. You can hug both, you can kiss both, and you don't need to make any choices until the very end of the game where you're in like the final scenes and you're like, right, who do I drop? Who do I pick up? Or do I leave both behind and go back to my old job? It's entirely up to you. And all of those story parallels kind of weave in and out in a nice way. And they all feel quite balanced as well. Each one has its negatives and positives. And so there isn't a technically right answer. It is down to how you feel. And that's quite a difficult thing to do where everything is balanced. It's about personality, choice, lifestyle, opinions, if that makes sense. Lake itself gets 2 things absolutely greatly done in its game. The first is Providence Oaks as a setting. It's beautiful, it's lush, it's nostalgic, it's postcard picture perfect. The lake in the centre that you drive around an awful lot throughout the game is beautiful, and no matter from which direction you're looking at, it is one of those things where you want to take screenshots. And thank God one of the mini games in the game is that you get a camera to take 12 photos of that you can then submit into a photo competition. Because I did find myself just being like, position myself at the lake, take one of the lake and the mountains or the dam, or let's try and get some birds flying over like the bridge or something like that, because everywhere you go it looks beautiful. The location itself doesn't feel like it's hustling and bustling though, which I guess is part of why it's a small town to begin with. And I think where Lake could have improved perhaps was making the world feel more lived in. Almost every parcel that you deliver, if it's not to a main character, they're not in, so you just like leave it on the doorstep and that's it. And it's got a lovely open world feel, but actually the amount of interaction that you can have is quite limited. So just be aware of that. This isn't going to be somewhere where you're like, I'm going to chill out in an aftergame mode and just live life in Providence Oaks. It's empty, but in a way that you'll be just moving around it and enjoying it. That being said, though, the second element of what I really liked about Lake was the range of characters and how they felt real and caricaturish at the same time, because they don't all have loads and loads of screen time, but they all establish themselves strongly in their opening scenes and set out strong characters that you can then warm to or get angry with, depending on who you like or don't. So you've got Laurie, who's the curious teenager who wants to know about life outside of Providence Oaks and whether or not you encourage that. Nancy, the jaded, chain-smoking shop owner who is just everyone's grumpy, miserable grey cloud, but in quite a charming, like, row, 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 row kind of way, rough round the edges. Then you've got Angie, who's from the VHS shop, who dreams of bigger things and shares a passion for new media and things that she just wants to be invested and lost in. On the flip side, Robert is very much around being a small town boy, naturistic, and sentimental. And both are built up quite nicely for the romantic leads that you can go for. But both are very viable choices, and that's what, again, I like about Lake. Aside from those two characters, the other two big characters that I really warmed to were Mo and Kay. Both their voice actors do superb jobs. They're both Dana girls, but they both have some of the best sentimental views on life, and some of the best scenes in Lake come from when you're reconnecting with these, because they're the two characters that you have there where you've got real prior history with Meredith, the character that you're playing, and it's very good at being able to add on layers of time, space and feeling. So you knew each other as kids, then you drifted apart, then life happened and you've ended up kind of disconnecting, and then there's resentment behind that, because you feel like, well, we used to be friends and now you just don't have time for me. And all of those layers come out really, really subtly in the conversations and the choices that you have. And you get the ability to be like, well, no, I'm still really mad at that. Or you can push things to one side and, you know what, say, I'm really sorry I wasn't there for you then, but I am now. And rebuild those friendships depending on how you warm or don't warm to them. And that's some of the best bits of Lake for me, was exploring that. It may hit slightly different for me because I'm in the bracket of the mid to late 30s range. And so I've too lost connection with almost everyone that I grew up with and had those initial kind of special friendship bonds. And you're like, we'll never break up. We'll always be friends forever. And then life gets in the way and life doesn't treat you very fair. And then you all end up in weird locations. Then you're on Facebook going, oh, we're friends really, but I'm not actually going to message you. And now it's too long time wise, and we've all disconnected. Okay, bye. We'll like your post maybe in 3 years time when you announce that you've got a baby. Do you know what I mean? And it evokes that kind of thing, but because of social media wasn't about back in 1986 as well, it makes it more confrontational, because you can't kind of slide into the DMs and go, oh, I'm always here if you want me, babes. Okay. Mwah. You have to be upfront and say that conversation and own up to the fact that you didn't actively keep in contact with people. And maybe I'm quite nostalgic about that. I don't know. It hit home for me anyway. For all the things that Lake does right, there were a few things that were quite wonky on launch. This all seems to have been fixed as of patch 1.05, for me personally anyway. I was experiencing points where Meredith was teleporting around randomly and getting stuck in locations, and I was like, no. One thing that does still happen for me though is that occasionally bits of the menu will appear in the middle of a cutscene for no particular reason, and I do have issues with some of the voice acting, which on the whole is actually really well done in Lake, kind of clipping over each other and not lining up with actually what they would say. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, it takes you out of that immersion. The other thing that I found quite weird as well is that when you press a button to be able to like get in and out of your van or deliver mail, it's really woolly as to whether or not she'll actually walk towards and then get in the van. Instead, she just keeps walking at the van, and it looks a bit clunky, as if like the sensor hasn't gone, she's in the van vicinity and she's pressed the button, get in. So quite often I'd have to, probably about 50% of the time, press that button several times for her to actually get in the van, which I just got used to over time, but it was just a bug that I felt was slightly annoying. Add to that you'd have to watch animations of parcels being picked in and out of the van, and if you pressed a button during that time, it meant that the parcel didn't necessarily pop out of the van. There's just some little tidying up that needs to be done around that kind of, I want to say collision detection, but it's almost like the game understanding that you're trying to get in and out of the van, and parcels in and out of the van, so it just runs a little bit more smoother. There's also the point that actually delivering mail felt quite hollow. And I didn't expect it to be like woo, whizzy and explosions everywhere, but I was quite surprised by how fatigued I was at delivering mail to random locations and it getting quite monotonous by the end of the 2-week period. I completed Lake in just under 6 hours, and I was using fast travel to get round to various different points in the lake quite a few times by the end, which surprised me because I thought that I wanted to stay and enjoy the place of what I'm doing, but actually I started to get a little bit bored of the parcel delivery side of things. Thankfully, fast travel sped that up for me. What I really wanted was more time with the characters, more side quests to do things, more interaction with them, because they were such a well-realised cast that it felt like the postal part of it was starting to get a little bit in the way, actually, of me wanting to experience the world of Providence Oaks and the characters that inhabited it. So it says a lot, actually, I think, around the writing of this game and the way how it all comes together, that I wanted to spend more time with them and less on the actual gaming side of the actual game itself. Lake, though, is something that I think many people who enjoy those chilled, relaxed games will enjoy. If you're looking for a slice of lifestyle narrative story where pressure and drama isn't necessarily top billing and it's about just enjoying the experience and having meditations on life, basically about slowing down, deciding to follow your own dreams and your own pace, and that actually sometimes taking a step back and having a reflection on your life really can help you have an aha moment and move on things. That really shines through Lake, and if you go in looking for a game where you're expecting something like that, I think you'll get an absolute ton of joy out from Lake. A written review will be over on higherplayinggames.com. But until next time, I hope you guys take care, and if you found this review informative, please do give us a like and consider subscribing. Cheers all, bye-bye. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplanenetwork. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.